So I've now carried my Freedom Flex in my wallet for about a year, and it's been able to earn me a couple $100s of cash back. Would I apply for it again? Short answer is yes. However, I don't think that it's necessarily the right card for everyone out there. But without further ado, let's take a look at the Chase Freedom Flex. One of the biggest perks about this card is that it has no annual fee, and that's one of the biggest reasons I actually got this card. And oftentimes, people that are newer to credit cards may write off no annual fee cards, thinking that they aren't as good as those cards that do come with the higher annual fees. That's totally wrong. You can get a ton of value out of it, as I did with my Freedom Flex. And at the time of getting the Freedom Flex, I did not want any cards with annual fees. I'd already been carrying 3 other cards out there, and I was pretty set on don't get an annual fee just yet, and just be able to maximize my cash back with those no fee setups. And another reason that I got this credit card is because it's part of the Chase Trifecta. At the time of applying, I was pretty new to credit cards, just a few months into my journey and doing all the research for the channel. But I kept seeing this Chase Trifecta come up and hearing how good it is, especially for people that are newer. It's an affordable way to maximize your cash back with just 3 cards. And without going into too much detail on that Chase Trifecta, it's basically a composition of 3 Chase cards, the Chase Freedom Flex, Chase Freedom Unlimited, and one of the 2 Chase Sapphire cards. The Freedom cards are going to have no annual fee, whereas one of these Sapphire cards will have a $95 annual fee or $550 annual fee. And the reason this is such an effective setup is because you can earn elevated cash back everywhere you go, and then if you do want to redeem for travel like I do myself, you transfer those points to your Chase Sapphire card for even more value on travel. I'll have a video breaking down the Trifecta. I'll link that up above and down below if this is something of interest to you. So a bit more about some specifics with the card. Currently there's a sign-up bonus listed on the website of earning 5% cash back on groceries for the entire first year. Now, I'm not necessarily a big fan of the sign-up bonus. The one that I got when I signed up, and a more traditional one, is spend $500 in the first 3 months of holding the card and earn 20,000 Chase points or $200 cash back. So if the current sign-up bonus doesn't necessarily sound of interest to you, be sure to just wait a week or 2 and see if it changes. Typically, these no annual fee cards will have different sign-up bonuses throughout the year, so there's no harm in waiting just a little bit longer. I should also mention, I will have a sign-up link for all the Chase cards down below in the description if any of them are of interest for you. But going into how you can actually earn cash back with this credit card, it's going to be a rotating categories card that will allow you to earn 5% cash back at a variety of places throughout the year. And what I mean by rotating categories is each quarter there's going to be a different area that you can spend and earn that elevated cash back. Some examples of this might be maybe the first quarter of the year, you can earn 5% cash back on your electric vehicle and gas purchases. And then that second quarter of the year, that rotating category might flip over to your dining and grocery purchases. The huge perk about this is you're going to be able to get 5% at a bunch of different places throughout the year. The downside of it is if that quarter isn't necessarily somewhere that you spend or a category that you spend on, you're going to be limited and won't really use that card. I should mention as well, on top of that 5% for your rotating categories, you're going to be able to earn 5% cash back on your travel purchase through the Chase portal, 3% cash back on your dining and drugstore purchases, and then 1% cash back everywhere else. I now want to pivot over and look at how I've actually used this card in the past year and where it really helped me earn cash back. So in total, over the past year, I've earned around 26,000 Chase points, which is around $260 cash back. So the bulk of those 26,000 points I was able to earn came from the sign-up bonus, which was that spend $500 in the first 3 months and earn 20,000 points. So that was really the majority of those points that I did earn, leaving around 6,000 points or $60 cash back from those other quarters. Now, I earned around 4,000 points or $40 cash back in quarter 4 of 2023. This is where I was able to use that card on wholesale purchases. So I typically do my weekly shopping at wholesale clubs. That's where I'll pick up my groceries just in bulk. So instead of going to the grocery store and buying a dozen eggs, I'll just buy the 60 pack at the wholesale club. And this usually averaged out to around $50 a week that I'd spend on groceries. So earning that 5% cash back over that span of the 13 weeks brought me back a little over 4,000 points or $40. Unfortunately, since then, I haven't gotten much use out of the card in 2024, even though it's been around 6 months. I know that the first quarter was focused on grocery purchases, and I might have used it for like 2 offhand purchases, but as a whole, I haven't really used it much since. And I was actually able to earn around 2,000 Chase points the very first quarter when I did get this card. For then, it was focused on 5% on your gas purchases. So at the time, unfortunately, I wasn't doing a lot of driving, so my gas bill was lower, but I was still able to earn some elevated cash back and around $20 cash back over the span of that quarter. So the big thing about this card is when it's getting you 5% cash back, it is absolutely awesome. I love spending with it. But when it's not going to give me 5% cash back, or those rotating categories are on something that I don't necessarily spend on, or where I don't like to shop, then I'm kind of out of luck, and you just need to accept tucking the card away until it's ready to come back out. So if you're looking for a credit card and you do plan on getting the Freedom Flex, one thing that I recommend doing is getting a primary card first and using this as a secondary utility card. And what I mean by this is basically if I have a catch-all card such as the Freedom Unlimited, now having a catch-all card might earn me a little bit more when I do spend, and albeit the Freedom Unlimited is going to give me 1.5% everywhere versus just 1%, that might not sound like a lot, but over the course of time, that will add up significantly. And the reason I recommend this is as a standalone card, the Freedom Flex, yes, it'll be able to get you 5% at a lot of awesome places throughout the year, but when that quarter isn't necessarily in your favor, you're going to want to have another card that you can look to get elevated cashback still, as opposed to just 1%. Essentially, as a standalone card, I don't think that the Freedom Flex makes much sense for people, but as a secondary utility card, I think it's fantastic to earn you 5% when it is possible. So that's going to do it for the big points surrounding the card, and those are definitely the fun things to talk about, but there still are a lot of smaller points I'd want to highlight with this credit card. The only real downside to using this card is that it is part of the Chase ecosystem, which is not like a bad thing that it's with Chase, but it's just that they have their 524 rule. This is an application rule that Chase has set into place that basically if you've applied for 5 or more credit cards in the past 24 months, and then you go to apply for the Freedom Flex or the Freedom Limited or any Chase card, you will be outright denied. Now, there are some exceptions to this, but it's pretty much accepted in the credit card community that if you do go to apply, you're going to be denied, and it's just easier to avoid this rule outright than try and figure out a loophole through it. If you are aware of this rule before going out and getting a lot of credit cards, then you really have nothing to worry about. Unfortunately, if you aren't aware of this rule and you've applied for a couple other credit cards, you might have to do some waiting if you want to build up in the Chase ecosystem. Aside from that, my experiences with Chase have been absolutely awesome. One last point about Chase, they do have some of the highest value in terms of their points. Depends on how you look at it from different websites, but if you are redeeming for travel with your other credit cards in the Chase portal, you can get upwards to 2.5 cents per point when redeemed, as opposed to traditionally just 1 cent per point when used for only cashback. I'll also mention that the credit card will give you 3 months complimentary Dash Pass, Instacart Plus, and some extra cashback on your Lyft rides. I'm not someone that uses these complimentary services, but if you are someone that likes your rideshare or delivery services, this is definitely a great option. The Freedom Flex is going to include some services and protections as well that I want to highlight. There's going to be a zero liability protection, purchase protection, and extended warranty protection with the credit card. There's also going to be some trip cancellation insurance, some cell phone protection, and some fraud monitoring. And finally, there's auto rental collision damage waivers and some travel assistance. Now, all of these things are super awesome, and I think that it goes above and beyond for what you might want out of a no annual fee card. A lot of times people won't necessarily take advantage of these hidden perks, so I always recommend reading up on them to make sure you get the full value out of every credit card. Now, everything I've talked about today played into my decision to get the Chase Freedom Flex. There are a lot of other cards out there, and I want to highlight a card that's pretty similar in that it's a rotating category card, and also highlight another card that's more of a catch-all credit card. So the first card, which is very similar to the Freedom Flex, is the Discover It Cashback card. This is a rotating categories card. And then that catch-all card I want to highlight is the Chase Freedom Unlimited. The big thing about all three of these cards, there's no annual fees. We saw with the Chase Freedom Flex, we can earn 5% cash back on those rotating categories, 5% cash back on my travel purchase through Chase, 3% back on my dining and drugstore purchases, and 1% cash back everywhere else. When it comes to the Discover card, it's also that rotating categories where you can earn 5% cash back on those rotating categories and 1% elsewhere. And I will mention, maybe it's in your options to get both the Freedom Flex and a Discover card. A lot of times those categories won't match up over one another, so you'll be able to get maybe gas purchases at 5% for 6 months of the year as opposed to just 3 months. So I definitely look into having multiple if it is of interest to you. And finally, the Chase Freedom Unlimited is going to give us 5% cash back on travel purchase through Chase, 3% back on dining and drugstore purchases, and 1.5% cash back everywhere else. Very, very similar to the Chase Freedom Flex. I just recommend having both so you do get that extra 0.5% everywhere you spend. Some other considerations when you are looking for credit cards is what system is it part of? Now, I highlighted earlier some key points with Chase. Both the Freedom cards will not give you access to their transfer partners, but you will be able to have their point system and use those points if you do elect to get one of the Sapphire cards and then gain access to some of their 14 transfer partners. On the other hand, Discover is not necessarily as fleshed out as Chase. You're not going to have any transfer partners with that card, but a positive side of that is things are a little bit more streamlined and there's not necessarily the complications and the craziness if you are looking to maximize every point that you do earn. In terms of the value of the cashback you're going to be earning, you will earn cashback with the Chase cards in form of Chase Ultimate Rewards points. And as I mentioned earlier, that can be stretched as much as to 2.5 cents per point, which ranks amongst the top of all credit card issuers out there. And on the other hand, for the Discover points, they're going to be valued at around 1 cent per point, which is not bad. You're still earning cashback. It's just that you're more limited inside of the portal for what you can redeem for. And that's really where we're going to see the disparity between the value of points between ecosystems. What weighs into that is how far can I stretch those points, especially with travel, or how many promotions do they run for some elevated perks with gift cards when I redeem, or like what else is available inside their point system. And once again, not to rag on Discover, it's a very streamlined approach in their ecosystem. You don't have to worry about complications with how do I redeem points to get more value out of it. It's just redeem it, you know your flat rate value. That's definitely a win if you don't want to have too many complications. Now, I'd always recommend checking out sign-up bonuses before applying for any credit card. The Freedom cards are going to run pretty similar sign-up bonuses throughout the year. Right now, they're a little different, but what you can expect to see is that spend $500, earn $200 cash back in the first 3 months. On the other hand, for the Discover card, they've been running a promotion for a while where they'll actually cashback match everything you've earned through the entire first year, which means you actually are basically getting 10% cash back on rotating categories and 2% cash back everywhere for that whole first year. And as a whole, I truly don't think you can go wrong adding the Chase Freedom Flex to your lineup in 2024. The only recommendation I would have is make sure you're trying to have another card with elevated cashback everywhere. That way you don't necessarily miss out when the quarters aren't aligned with your spending. I've absolutely loved having this credit card in my wallet, albeit it's been tucked away for a little bit now. I do look forward to when the categories do go back to that 5% on, say, gas or wholesale clubs again. Moving forward, I have great plans to get more value out of my Chase Trifecta, and it all begins with these 2 Chase Freedom cards, especially the Freedom Flex with that 5%. And as we saw though, there are tons of other options out there. I only highlighted 2 others, so be sure to do a lot of research before applying for any credit card. And if you're interested in any other videos talking about reviews, tips, and tricks, be sure to go check out the channel and hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in helping me grow. But I really appreciate you guys watching this long, and I'll see you in the next video.